Hello, everybody. Hello. I hope life is treating you well. I hope the sun is shining upon you wherever you are at. My name is Claude Massey. I'm a life coach and career counselor in Tel Aviv, Israel. And I wanted to do an update today about the situation going on in Israel. However, the first thing I want to do is clarify to all of you that everything I'm going to talk about is pure perspective. So it's just my way of looking at the world. And I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and I've been living in Israel for over 10 years. So I just thought I would give you guys an update for all of the subscribers on the channel who are international. Thought I would give you an update and let you know what's going on. So, as you guys probably know already, Israel is in a lockdown because, well, the coronavirus is rampant in Israel, meaning Israel is being forced to basically go into extreme measures because the Roni is spreading all over the place. So I thought I would pretty much give you this idea of what September's like, because well, we're in quarantine, we're in lockdown for the next 3 weeks. And so I've had a chance to kind of go around a little bit. And I thought I would share for you, what do I think of the lockdown specifically? What am I seeing around the country from my perspective? And basically, I've got a couple of notes here that I'm going to look at as we go along. So sit back and enjoy. And if you haven't done it yet, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And hey, Michael. And if you haven't done it yet, hit the thumbs up button on this video. So basically, something that I've noticed as I've been living, and I specifically live in Ramat Gan, which is basically on the border or a part of Tel Aviv. It's technically a different city, but it's super close. And if you're thinking about distance between the heart of both cities, it is probably about 5 miles maximum. I don't know, maybe even 3 miles. So the entire sort of realm of central Israel is really not that big. But because it is a quote unquote different city, and although it's not really that far, the vibe concerning the lockdown is really, really different, meaning the way that people are treating the lockdown, the way that people are treating each other during the lockdown, and really what the streets and the vibe is like. And so the energy as I'm living in Ramat Gan and kind of looking around me in Ramat Gan is much, much different. Now, the reason for the energy shift in Ramat Gan is because Ramat Gan, as I told you, is a city, but it's a city in the middle of two cities, Tel Aviv and basically Bnei Barak, which is another sort of quote unquote more religious city just east of Ramat Gan. Now, Bnei Barak is sort of a hotspot as far as the coronavirus in Israel. And so I think if I was to really analyze why Ramat Gan specifically is a bit more adherent to the policies in place or the request from the government in place, I would say it's because it's bordering a quote unquote red city or a city that is known to be a hotspot. Now, to the west of Ramat Gan is Tel Aviv. Now, Tel Aviv, the energy there during this lockdown, because I do go back and forth, the energy is much, much different in Tel Aviv. It's much more relaxed. And Tel Aviv is typically considered the bubble of Israel because when you think about the conflicts that are going on globally, Tel Aviv is sort of exempt. The energy of Tel Aviv doesn't shift much because it's directly in the middle of the country. I think that's why they refer to it as the bubble. Although I personally have heard many, many, many rockets going off over my head or sort of explosions, but that's a whole other story. We're talking about September. So in this day and age, I'll tell you what, the quarantine is definitely not being strictly followed in Tel Aviv, from what I can see. By a majority, I don't know. I don't know the percentages, but I would say it's probably a bit less than half. So I don't know. I'll say like 30% of the population is really throwing the quarantine sort of concept and is really rebellious to the idea of lockdown in general. And so they're acting as such. And so that can be a concern for a government, right? And from what I've read in the newspaper, they've deployed more, law enforcement across the country to help sort of minimize the risk of of upheaval, basically. And that's just happening recently over the last few days. Is this just first of all, the enforcement or the beginning of the lockdown itself, and then ultimately this idea of the government acknowledging that there's a significant amount of people in the population who are against the lockdown itself. So that's interesting, right? Now, something I noticed also, since we're talking kind of about the different vibe between different cities, is the idea of the beaches, because I don't know if you've ever been to Tel Aviv or to Israel, but well, Israel is a coastal country. It sits completely on the seas of the Mediterranean, and the beaches are quite populated. Certainly in Tel Aviv, the beaches are typically crowded. Now, during this lockdown, during September, which is a very warm month, dare I say a hot month in Israel, because of the humidity, it's definitely warm. Um, the beaches were typically and would typically be crowded. However, during this time, um, believe it or not, the beaches are still relatively crowded. Um, all of those people who are rebellious, quote unquote, I ain't gonna call them rebellious. They're just being themselves. Everyone's being themselves and handling the situation differently. But certainly the beaches, from what I've personally seen, are not empty. There's a significant, number of activities handling on the beach, because the idea is that sports are legal during this lockdown. So if you're outside at the beach, you're allowed to go to the beach and do sports. So there's surfers in the water, windsurfers, I think it's called kite surfing, and just a lot of people out there doing sport, because of course there's volleyball. There's a huge thing in Israel is paddle ball, or what's called mat coat, which is hitting the ball back and forth, basically. um, the beaches have populations or have people on them for sure. Um, no one's really chilling, and you'll see the police out in definitely more numbers on the beaches. So no one's really chilling, but people are definitely out there doing sports, and so that's the beaches. As far as businesses and what a business is, kind of the energy is, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, how do I perceive the energy as far as businesses? During a lockdown, of course, only essential businesses are permitted to be open for the public, of course. And so those business specifically, those ones that are permitted to be open, um, fall under a long and very specific, detailed list that I couldn't name and really go through the details of. But I'll tell you this: many businesses are closed during this time, and unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of stores kind of empty out a little bit. And so, yeah, this lockdown combined with the one that was back in March, I believe it was March, April. Um, that sort of lockdown situation is causing businesses to, for sure, go under. Businesses are hurting, and I can see it around me. Um, Really, the only businesses that are permitted to be open, of course, are grocery stores, pharmaceuticals, restaurants that deliver, and etc. So basically, on an energy level, from a business perspective, many businesses are hurting because the general public is not coming in. I hope everybody is, willing to switch over to e-commerce, which of course is where we're going globally. Um, that being said, where we're going globally is high tech, and Israel is without question one of the high tech capitals of the world. And because of this, and thank goodness, many employees are able to work from home. The programmers, all of the various components it takes to launch a software company, many of these positions are, you can work from them from home. So that's what many people are doing. Excuse me. But many people are becoming unemployed, of course. So you're seeing unemployment numbers rise for sure during this lockdown in September. And that's a situation that we as a country, we as a whole, and certainly the government and the public are going to have to deal with. And man, I wish us luck with that. Let's see what we got here. What else? Oh yeah, man, that's interesting. There's quite a bit of protests happening. So there's protests happening in front of the prime minister's house. He has several houses in the country, and basically every day there are protests happening that are anti-lockdown, anti, you know, establishment, hurting the small business owners, hurting the people. And so there's that rebellious movement is being expressed in protests without question and demonstrations without question. Um, Man, I don't know what the volume is of them, but I know it's quite significant in front of the prime minister's houses. In fact, I would highly recommend that you could sort of research everything I'm talking about during this live stream on mainstream news. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm just telling you sort of what's happening and my perspective behind it, right? Ultimately. And I guess I'll start to wrap up a little bit as far as this update is concerned. In my sort of observation, and me personally sort of being a badass rebel myself, Israelis don't like to follow the rules that much. And so this quarantine is a struggle without question by the government. And I wonder if Israelis were able to follow the rules and wear the masks. I have one somewhere around here. For sure, I have a mask. I have a bunch of them. Of course, we all do. I wonder what the future has in store. And I certainly hope that this quarantine causes the coronavirus numbers to go down. And I hope that this lockdown ends soon. And I hope I have some more information for you. And, what are we in? August, September, October, November. I'll give you updates whenever I feel like it, every other day if I feel like it. So just subscribe and stay tuned, and have a great day. Take care.